WhatsApp is largely untapped in terms of how to monetize it, and 2 billion people are using it
Right.
every day. I think things look very different on a 10-year time horizon than the zone that we're in for the next few years. On a 5 to 10-year time horizon, I'm still completely optimistic about all the things that we've been optimistic about. I think that the computing platforms that we use will continue to evolve. The media will continue to evolve. When I started the company, most people online were sharing text. Then it moved to photos when we got cameras and phones that had cameras all the time. And as the mobile networks got better, it moved to video. The way we want to communicate keeps getting richer and more immersive, and our computing platforms keep on getting more natural and ubiquitous. And I just think that the inevitable trend of that is, as you get a new major computing platform every 10, 15, 20 years, that like video is not going to be the end of the line. Phones are not going to be the end of the line. Right? We're not going to be here in the 2030s communicating and using computing devices that are exactly the same as what we have today. And someone has to build that and invest in it and believe in it. And there's a lot of new technology that needs to get invented to create that. So I'm still very optimistic about that. And I'm happy to go as deep as you want on all of that, what it means for our
Right.
mission and the business and strategy. I made this mistake. I think some other business leaders did too, but I think we made in some ways, particularly acute version of this, where we read the economic and business indicators in 2021 at the height of the pandemic as more likely to continue. This huge pull forward in e-commerce and online commerce. So when I was planning out our long-term spending, I planned out massive investments in AI infrastructure and a number of other long-term things, silicon for the kind of hardware to support the metaverse that are 5-year investments that we spun up because we thought that the economy and the business were going to go in a certain direction, and obviously it hasn't turned out that way. Not only the macro economy, but I think things like Apple's policies on ATT have been hard. So yeah, we've had to pull back. Still kind of pushing forward in the same direction over the long term, but with our kind of operational focus over the next few years is going to be on efficiency and discipline and rigor and kind of just operating in a much tighter environment. Look, these are long-term investments, and I think over the cycle of playing this out, we're going to go through a lot of different seasons, right? Seasons where people are pretty optimistic about long-term investments, and ones where people are more skeptical. And I just think part of seeing things through over the long term is powering through some of that. In terms of the investment portfolio for the company, about 80% of our investments, a little bit more, go towards the core business, which we call our family of apps, right? So that's Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, and the ads business associated with that. And then a little less than 20% of our investment goes towards Reality Labs, which is the future work on building out these software and hardware platforms around the metaverse. So it's still the vast majority of what we're doing is and will continue to be going towards social media for quite some time until the metaverse becomes a larger thing. And I think you can debate whether on the order of 20% is too much for this bet, but it's not the majority of what we're doing. And then within that, it sort of breaks down into 3 major platforms. One is the social platform, some of what you showed in that video, which is really more of a continuation of what is social media and what is the social experiences that we're going to want to have in a more immersive environment. I think that's like the most basic thing that we're going to do, but it's actually a relatively small part of the overall Reality Labs work because software ends up being very efficient to develop. Of the rest, it's maybe about 40% goes towards our VR investment, where it's already we're selling quite a few units. I think we're investing a level that is sort of on par with what Microsoft did with when investing in Xbox at its peak. So, and I think the results that we're seeing right now are kind of like a game console. So, obviously we don't aspire to just build a game console. We want it to be a general computing platform, but I think it's pretty likely that a downside case is that's where it turns out. And I don't think Microsoft regrets building the Xbox, so I think that that's fine. AR is really the big thing long term, right? About half or more of the investment that we're making in Reality Labs is going towards building what I think is the long-term most important form factor, which is just normal-looking glasses that can put holograms in the world. So, we do a version of this conversation 5 years from now, and instead of me on a video conference, you have another chair next to you, and I'm just there as a hologram. I think that's pretty wild and can start enabling a lot of really compelling use cases for presence between people. But yeah, this is a long-term thing. Well, okay. I mean, I've had doubters, and we've had doubters the whole time. The almost 20 years I've run the company. People thought, okay, this is just a college thing. Oh, it's a fad. Oh, it seems to be working, but it's not going to make much money. Oh, you went to mobile, but that's not going to work well as a business. Okay, it's working well. Are you going to be able to handle the content issues? I think that this comes with it's par for the course. Is that people are I think to some degree, if you're not getting a bunch of skepticism, then you're probably not pushing hard enough on the future. So that part, I think. I try to listen to the critique because I think there were a lot of smart and thoughtful people who are giving it, and it's coming from a place of wisdom where I think we can learn and improve by internalizing some of it. But skepticism by itself doesn't bother me that much. In terms of what do we see for the future? I think VR and AR are going to play different roles in people's lives. AR, I think, is going to subsume more of how you think about mobile computing, right? So it's more like a phone-like use case. You could totally see being out in the world and wearing it, and getting directions as you're driving through a heads-up display, or getting messages and being able to respond to them discreetly and seamlessly without having to pull out something or type, just by sending some like a signal from your mind, which sounds wild, and we can go do a whole tangent on that. But that I'm actually pretty confident is going to happen within the next 5 years, and VR, I think, it occupies a different role. I think that's more immersive, and in the sense of what you do when you're on a computer or TV, which I think it's easy for. Yeah, you don't walk down the street watching a TV, but the average American still spends about half their time on screens in front of TVs and computers. So it's not all phones. So I think that ends up being an important part of this too. And to what you were saying before about this feeling more human. There is just this dynamic. It's funny to kind of transpose it to a 2D screen. So sometimes when you show the videos of what it looks like in VR, it can look a little silly. But the whole technology is about delivering a sense of presence and making it feel like you're really there with another person. So it's all these things like how you move, how they move, the ability to make eye contact. It's like spatial audio, right? The fact that when we were sitting next to each other in that conference room, and you were sitting to my right and you spoke, it sounded like the audio was coming from the right? And so much of our memories and how we perceive the world is spatial, right? We kind of we just kind of think about and remember. Okay, I remember that you were sitting to my right in that meeting. Whereas I'm on a Zoom call all day long. They all kind of look the same. It's a grid, and you kind of lack a sense of space, and it sort of blends together. So yeah, we don't have the photorealism today, right? So the avatars will obviously get better over time, but I think in some way this already delivers a better sense of presence, and this will just get a lot stronger over the next 3 to 5 years. My perception is what yours is basically, I think a lot of people think okay, we're just wholly focused on the metaverse. We're not focused on the social media part and the family of apps, and I know that's basically wrong. I mean, it's the vast majority of my time and the vast majority of the company's effort is going towards the social media efforts. The engagement that we're seeing in these apps is strong. I think that people, I think that there's somewhat of a perception that it's not going as well for some reason, but internally, from all the numbers that we see, the metrics are strong. Engagement is going well. We have bets like Reels, which is, short form video is increasingly important. It's hard to exactly track how we're doing compared to competitors like TikTok. But if you look at external data and you try to extrapolate, we don't really have any data on how they're doing in China. But if you look at outside of data, some of the external metrics suggest that, Reels is maybe about half the time of TikTok globally, outside of China. So, obviously we don't aspire to be half of anything. But compared to where we were, a year ago, maybe teens or something like that, the trends have been pretty good, and we're making progress on that. That's growing. We get good feedback from people in our community about that the quality is improving. So the engagement side of things, I think, is going quite well, and my guess is a bit better than people perceive externally. Right. On the monetization side, there's the advertising piece, which, it really does look a little bit different depending on, which continent you're talking about. I mean, the US economy seems, a bit stronger. Europe has a bit more challenges. China's obviously difficult to predict. I think it's gone better over the last year. We don't have a consumer service in China, but Chinese advertisers sometimes buy ads in order to export to the countries where we do run. And in China, obviously with the turmoil right now, it's hard to predict exactly how that'll go. But I mean, those have sort of been different zones that have just behaved in very different ways. Then the other thing that I'd say for our business is, the advertising part really primarily touches Facebook and Instagram, which are the advertising platforms at scale. WhatsApp is largely untapped in terms of how to monetize it, and 2 billion people are using it every day, or on a daily basis on average. So that's really the next platform that we're focused on bringing online from a business messaging and monetization perspective. And I think the potential there is going to be pretty big over the next few years as well.